I'm Tiff, and this is Philly Cam from every angle. So today I have a special guest, Keyssh. They are part of an organization called Decolonize Philly. So do you want to introduce yourself and what Decolonize Philly is and like their mission statement?
Yes, first, thank you for having me on this beautiful show. Really appreciate it. Hey everyone, my name is Keyssh, and I am the creator of Decolonize Philly. Decolonize Philly is a anti-gentrification, anti-colonial project that seeks to put back power into people's hands. So half of what we do is media campaigns, and half of what we do is creating workshops to like mobilize people to get them thinking about how we can reimagine a new future.
Nice.
Thank you.
So, and especially now, we're talking about a lot about the land justice movements and what are the policies currently that are in Philly that have contributed to like just speeding up of this like development of just injustice in general.
Yeah, so when it comes to the city, as we can tell, there's a lot of displacement of Black and brown people and impoverished like other folks. And some of those things, some of that, first we have to realize that gentrification starts at the policy level. That's level number 0 before like 1, which is like developers coming in. But some of those policies can look like the 10-year tax abatement, where if people of higher economic status come into these impoverished neighborhoods, they come and get 10 years off of their taxes. Or that looks like the sheriff's sale, where a lot of people aren't educated about how they can obtain houses, and so these sheriff sales hold these auctions around like houses that's been put up there because of property liens, which is another thing. And a lot of people in our communities don't understand how they can go to these share sales, but they're also outbid because they don't have the financial status or the credit to obtain properties. So that's like some things that's like, I feel like it's contributing.
So like definitely like the lack of resources, especially maybe from like the government or
lack of resources, lack of financial education, and just like policies such as redlining and things that really are focused on keeping rich people rich and poor people like in that oppressive state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are the areas specifically that like maybe for Decolonize Philly that you are like especially like honing in on, or in the greater Philadelphia area?
Yeah, so Decolonize Philly, it started with a lot of different issues that I was like realizing in Philly. One of the biggest ones was gun violence, and then the other being gentrification. Like I grew up in Philly my whole life. I grew up in Southwest Philly, and my mom, my birth mom, never had stable housing. And after I graduated high school, I'm like, I can't really find a job and I can't really get housing. So it was actually a point after the George Floyd and Walter Wallace situation where I took a community class at Drexel, and it was an article that said that out of the 57 blocks where 10 or more people were killed, 53 of those were in federally deemed redlined neighborhoods. So that put it in my head, even though I was organizing already, and I was still like creating, how can I create spaces for other people that's around my age to organize? I was like, the issue of gun violence, we have like so many people that's been shot and killed, is an issue of land justice. And so if we can focus on how these things, whether it's environmental justice, climate change, poverty, whether it's people not being able to have housing, the gun violence, they all come at that parallel line of colonialism. So if we can all shift to this one issue, then I feel like we all can make a difference to save humanity and to save our dying planet.
Yeah, and then also for me, like coming from, I'm a student from Penn, and so a lot of the things that I've been seeing so far, just like all the protests and like a lot of articles that were written about it. How do you think like Penn specifically, or like any of the colleges around like West Philly have been like impacting these areas?
Yeah, thank you for that. So firstly, I would say that I grew up in West Philly, and I went to a school in West Philly, Sarah, and then Robeson. And I noticed those people that live in these neighborhoods, especially where Penn and Drexel, people that go to lower economic schools, they're not able to get into any of the colleges in Philly, even though we might like have a, like be educationally able and fit for those colleges, but they come into our neighborhoods, they're nonprofits, they get like write-offs to come develop and push us out and say that we're not worth anything, so they can displace us. So I feel like that is like a way they have a big impact. And I think that people need to realize that like the emotional baggage of not being able to have housing and being displaced.
Yeah. And I think that just that's like having these two schools, like they're probably known to be like one of the top schools, like one of the higher education, like higher prestigious colleges. And I find it really interesting how, especially how like there's people living right next to us that have completely, especially in like finances, where so a lot of us are completely separate. And so I think there's always like a lack of empathy between like for like Penn students or for like any college student that lives next to any community that's like right next to them, especially within it's like less financially stable. It's very interesting how we have been reacting to the situation, especially we have a lot of organizations like Fossil Free Penn who has been really actively working with UC townhomes. And so I think maybe especially for students, how could they get involved? Because I know there's been a lot of like disciplinary actions that's been taking place if we were to get involved into these movements. And so
I would say first, like, don't be scared to get involved. Like, to fight against capitalism is to ultimately choose to fight for human rights is to fight against capitalism. And to fight against capitalism in a state that's runs off of capitalism is to go against the state, which is to be a threat to the state, which is to ultimately be at risk of becoming a political prisoner. And I think a lot of people look at political prisoners and like kind of outcast them from society, but these are the people that are trying to stir up love in our communities, and there's nothing wrong with stirring up love. So I feel like there's a lot of different organizations you get involved in, whether you're a student, and just know like the risks, no matter if you're a student or if you're not a student, to fight against capitalism is to fight, it's like a fight for justice, but it's worth it in the end, because eventually this whole system has to overturn. It's like in capitalism, bad is bad, and no, bad is good in the reverse. But there's a lot of organizations such as Fossil Free Penn. You have Drexel students that have their centers. Then you have outside organizations like the Iglesias Gardens, and different orgs all over the city.
That's awesome. And so we are out of time, but thank you so much for taking the time to come here and really share what your organization is about and how like the Greater Philadelphia community and even like people outside of Philadelphia can help. And yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.